Ladies and gentlemen, I bring it on stage our next performer. And this man is one of the best dressed men in the business. But in the lineup, when I am wrong, he's second to me. I'm talking about sartorial elegance. Smartly attired this evening, the man say, he come to tell us all about his life. Part of it. In Mearo. He said it wasn't easy to survive. The name of the song, Born to Survive. A good selection. So sit back, relax, and let us bring on stage Winston Peters, better known as Gypsy.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. What can be worse than a 10-year-old on the cold beach of Mearo? With just the surf and the sand, a dream and a plan, and no promise of tomorrow. Hungry belly cry, trouble wave bye-bye. And at that age, you think life is cold, but there is no way to know, cause it never would show. It's all for this dungeon called the world. But I'm a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm staying alive. I'm born to survive. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There have been times gone by when I watch mama cry, and I know daddy hurt inside. Though he worked like a man, did all that he can, but somehow he just couldn't provide all the things that we need, but somehow we succeed. And those were real trying times indeed. But then I couldn't understand that that was part of the plan that would make me a much stronger man. I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm staying alive. Watch me, I'm just born to survive. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yes, I've worked to the bone, felt so all alone in places I didn't know too well. Abuse and misuse, that was nothing I chose. Sure, those conditions felt like hell. But hard work do pay, now things are not that way. But success do breeds envy indeed. And although I've done no wrong, you should hear evil tongue working with envy to bring me down. Go on, I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities. Brother, I laugh when your guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine will still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm just staying alive. I was born to survive. Yes. Yes, I cannot hide. It hurts down inside, cause there's blood running through my veins. And when the things people say sure gets in your way and there's no truth, it causes you pain. And when the good that you do just never shine through, you wear a smile and you do some more. Cause although hate knows no bound, but love makes you strong, and for your good, your reward is sure. And I'm a born survivor now. I can smile through all my adversities. I'll just laugh when the guns are trained at me. I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night is going to bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. Hungry belly cry, trouble wave bye-bye. And at that age, you think life is cold. But there is no way to know, cause it never would show. It's all for this dungeon called the world. But I'm a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife. I'm staying alive. I'm born to survive. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There have been times gone by when I watch mama cry and I know daddy hurt inside. Though he worked like a man, did all that he can, but somehow he just couldn't provide all the things that we need, but somehow we succeed. And those were real trying times indeed. But then I couldn't understand that that was part of the plan that would make me a much stronger man. I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. I don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife. I'm staying alive. Watch me, I'm just born to survive. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yes, I've worked to the bone, felt so all alone in places I didn't know too well. Abuse and misuse, that was nothing I chose. Sure, those conditions felt like hell. But hard work do pay, now things are not that way. But success do breeds envy indeed. And although I've done no wrong, you should hear evil tongue working with envy to bring me down. Go on, I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities. Brother, I laugh when your guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine will still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife. I'm just staying alive. I was born to survive. Yes. Yes, I cannot hide. It hurts down inside, cause there's blood running through my veins. And when the things people say sure gets in your way and there's no truth, it causes you pain. And when the good that you do just never shine through, you wear a smile and you do some more. Cause although hate knows no bound, but love makes you strong, and for your good, your reward is sure. And I'm a born survivor now. I can smile through all my adversities. I'll just laugh when the guns are trained at me. I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night is going to bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. Don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife. I'm staying alive. I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. Said I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. Said I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. I was born to survive.
Winston Peters, Born to Survive. Mighty Gypsy. Very good. One of my favorite selections. Reflections on his life. And that life could be personal or it could be collective. It could be the Caribbean collective, the Guyanese collective, the African collective, the Indian collective, all those identities. Born to survive. The survival, you can find that theme of survival in almost all genres of Black popular music, Caribbean popular music. Bob Marley sang about survival. Like Daniel in the Lion's Den. Born to survive. Born to survive. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Flash Gordon. I was listening this morning, Flash. I heard you this morning. I heard you this morning, Flash Gordon, on the Buxtonian Morning Time. Scolding me. Well, not scolding, but drawing attention to the fact that you told me so, but I wasn't listening. You told me so. People feeling very strongly about the coalition or lack thereof. As you know, we had been calling for a grand coalition and including all the opposition political parties, but especially the AFC and the WPA, the ones with name recognition, and I and the WPA pushing what we call a grand coalition. And up to tonight, the AFC is not part of it. And Flash Gordon, very early on, made it very clear that we were wasting our time, that the AFC was not going anywhere. I don't know if he got some spiritual premonition, but I heard you this morning, Flash. Good evening to all of you. The AFC, of course, put out a statement today saying that it should not be blamed for the fact that there is not a grand coalition, that it was not their stubbornness that has led to the lack of a grand coalition, that all they did was to ask for a consensus candidate, and that the other party was stubborn and not entertaining a consensus candidate. As I said last night, only the AFC can answer that. As we said, that the AFC publicly said it was meeting with all the so-called third parties, and they never gave the WPA a call. Maybe we are not a third party, maybe we are a fourth party, but they never gave the WPA a call. And some people were speculating because that we were too black, so we never got a call. And as I pointed out last night, Nigel Hughes represented African Guyanese and international fora just this year. Nigel Hughes did some very, very, very important work pointing out the inequities in the economy. So I don't think it was because we are too black, because Nigel operated and as black as I've done, and probably more black. Maybe we are too radical. I don't know. But we never got a call. And the AFC has not said publicly why they never called the WPA. Maybe we don't exist. Maybe, like I said, we're not a third party, we're a fourth party. We enjoy very good personal relationship with Nigel. I myself have spoken to Nigel in the interim on legal matters. Nigel represents Brother Tukuman, Brother Kedaki, free of charge. He sees them in court. But only the AFC can answer that. I regret, we all regret that the AFC is not on board. I don't know of an opposition supporter who does not feel very strongly about the fact that the AFC is not on board. It's one of the mysteries of our time. I notice Sherrod Duncan, in a response to the AFC statement today, said, that he would have taken the 30% that Norton agreed to and run with it, because 30% of the pie is better than 0%. And Sherrod, as you know, is an AFC man. I saw the AFC statement under the name of Nigel, and I shared it, but I'm still not convinced. The statement still does not convince me. I hope the AFC comes on board. I still hope. As I said last night, The coalition right now is APNU / WPA, APNU WPA. But we in the WPA are very clear about what it takes to build a coalition. We built the APNU with our arch enemy. We, the PNC and the WPA, were arch enemies in the 70s and the 80s and 90s. And we had to build the APNU with them. So we know what it takes to build a coalition, to give and take. We were shafted. We built the coalition with Corbyn, but Corbyn then stepped aside and the other man took over and the other man shafted us. But we still insist on coalition because we think it's right. Although we were shafted, we're not deterred by that. And as I said last night, even with the limited coalition that we have, APNU, WPA, which in effect is PNC, WPA, that when it comes to the top of the ticket, we do not feel that two black men should be at the top of the ticket. And so the WPA's candidate, which is myself, WPA's candidate is prepared to step aside for someone of another ethnic group to be the prime ministerial candidate, someone of another gender to be the prime ministerial candidate. We have no problems with that. We did not lay claim to the presidential candidacy because we know that has to go to the largest party. And we are not laying claim to the prime ministerial candidate because we feel it has to be somebody who is not an African man. And, you know, if Nigel and the AFC decided the 11th and 11 and a half hour to come on board, and we in the WP have to make some slight concessions to accommodate their entry at the 11th hour. We're prepared to do that because that's what you do with coalition. It's not easy. We are already a divided society by race and ethnicity. We are divided by class. And if you're going to build a coalition in a society that is riveted by racial division, you have to get into the political culture of making concessions. And then, as we are noticing in the African community, we have some serious class differences. And so you have to make concessions. I have said that I think the AFC is taking some very strong middle class, traditional middle class, black middle class position. And I don't have a problem with that. It's a reality in our society. The PNC itself, as I've said here when it came together at force, really brought together three different forces. The urban working class, represented by Burnham, the predominantly urban middle class, represented by John Carter, and the urban working class, represented by Sidney King. That was the birth of the PNC. And of course, you had some Indian elements, whether they brought a mass base with them. I'm talking about Jaina Ryan Singh and Lachman Singh, who went with Burnham in 1955. And so in many regards, there were four different forces that gave birth to the early PNC. And the PPP itself, after the splits, the communist PPP came together with the capitalist Indian class, led by the Biharis and the Debudins and so on. So in many regards, all the political formations were, represented the class diversity and racial diversity in our society. And so if you're going to build a coalition in a place like Guyana, you just cannot be inflexible. You just cannot be inflexible. It's a non-starter. The UF was really a coalition of the Portuguese merchant class for the most part, and the Amerindians. The WPA was really a combination of the intelligentsia, the African base that Ascari brought to the WPA. The WPA's early mass base was, people say they didn't have a mass base. Guyana and Ascari brought a base. And of course, you had the Indian elements represented by Moses Bagwan's IPRA. So you can go through all of our formations. They were coalitions. That is the reality of Guyana. And I have to say that I don't think that a lot of the contemporary political people really understand in a deep sociological and political way the reality of Guyana. They seem to operate in a make-believe Guyana rather than a Guyana whose reality they had studied. I yearn for the days when each party had a party school. Our guest tonight, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, ran one of those schools. The PPP had their party school. The WP had its party school. You couldn't be a political activist if you didn't go to political school. We don't have political schools today. And every time I listen to some of the contemporary politicians, and don't get me wrong, I think we have some brilliant young political activists. They mean well, but they just simply do not understand politics. And in particular, Guyanese and Caribbean politics. They don't. They don't understand race. They don't understand. I mean, yes, my generation and the generation before and the generation after, we had to study Marxism. We had to, all of us, PPP, PNC, WPA, all of us had to read Lenin, What is to be Done, and Marx and so on, I'm afraid that the contemporary, and I don't mean it as a put down, you all don't get me wrong, because they are products of a particular society. And the society itself is not steeped in that tradition. And these people come out of that society. So the fact that they are not grounded ideologically and so on, it's not their fault. And I think it shows up in the political decisions and political statements they made. So that's my little editorial tonight. As we come in, I think we are all ready for Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Hi, David.
You came into UG as I was leaving Guyana.
Okay.
And I think I took one class from you. You, my high school teacher, Toshera, came in around the same time. And I think Freddie Kisun came in a little bit after you all. But when you came in, I was leaving. I think I took one class from you. So we're gonna roll back the time tonight. Is there anything that I said there in my introduction that you want to grade very harshly?
No, great, David. You were just, essentially what you just did was present the history of what has taken place, and that is, I don't think anybody will quarrel with what you have said. You have not biased it. Indeed, you have not biased it sufficiently on the part of your party. You see, you talk about you being intellectual and all that, but I think that you have a better moral grounding than most of the other parties. Regardless, even when you were in coalition with the thing, with the PNC, I don't know what you want to call it, and I quarreled about the WP, about that coalition not pressing on with constitutional change to make this government, the whole governance of Guyana more inclusive. The people that come out essentially to try to ameliorate that position. Others come out and criticize it, almost saying we don't need it. To ameliorate it, to say it, to say that maybe next time, maybe down the road, maybe I said the face caught in a moral situation here. I said they're caught. Ogunzai, all of you, you got caught in this moral situation and you're trying to, but I don't know what you're trying to. But I said, at that point, I recognized what was happening. And I recognized too that it is not just the intellectualism that you brought to the politics of Guyana. It's the morality, the moral base. You brought it. You stood with the PPP against the PNC. You stood with them. You know, you bring a different kind of dimension. But as you said, and I knew that was taking place, that I know that that was the PNC and the Granger group that didn't want this thing. I knew that, but that's why I was pressing it, because I was saying, you're going for, and today you are where you are because of that moral context. You are with the PNC, with Norton, because of the moral context. You went to an election, an internal election. You're calling for democracy overall in the country as a whole. You went to an election done by Vincent in the most credible fashion, internal election. I've written, and I still believe that the PNC is the more democratic party in Guyana. PPP ain't got nothing about that. That is all the leader determine and do manipulation at election time and give who must get what, and that's about it. But Norton, you went to election, and Norton won those elections, fair and square. Historically, even look at Suriname today. If you got one seat more than the other man, you have the first bite at the presidency. You have that. The Bautista party got 18 seats there, but the other party got 17. She has the fourth bite at the presidency. You can't come and tell the man who has won that, hey, what's happened? There is some kind of poll. Nobody knows who did this poll, but even that's irrelevant. Because some kind of a poll, and this poll shows that you are not electable. And why? Polls can show it. Perhaps if you went to a poll about Jagdu, if you went to a poll about Donald, it would show that they were not the candidates the people wanted. So effectively, what you have is a situation. I think it's the moral context you bring to the politics of Guyana, and because you have that history of fighting for what is fair, what actually should happen, and that's why you can openly say now, yeah, we were conned by the PNC, because you were. I know that then, and that's why I was pressing it. You can't bring no poll now to show why Norton should not be the presidential candidate. I have seen nobody that come up better than Norton to be the presidential candidate. Who? Put them up. What? I mean, what? You put him on a stage with them, and I can't see it. I mean, and I think I look at politics a bit keenly. What is it that you want? What is it? Just Norton. That's what they want. Just Norton. For no, with all sort of trite nonsense about Bamba Mali and you know, they used to complain. I told you on this program before that Granger don't go to Bamba Mali.
If you sleep too early.
Yes.
You go to bed at 7 o'clock, yes.
Yes. They complain to me. You can't get him to go to Bamba Mali. And no, you got man go to Bamba Mali. And they got that becomes something. And then you are making up all sorts of stories as you go along. Instead of saying, hey, this is what we are Democrats. This is what the democratic process has thrown up. Let us, we know is, as I said, you have not explained quite clearly to me, but all of us have shortcomings. We know his shortcomings. Let us organize around to deal with those shortcomings and get along with the business. That's it.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey, I want you to weigh in on the question of the ideological and political schools we have. You, of course, was principal of the Kurukuru Cooperative College, which was not the party school because the PNC had its own party school, which I think was Coffee.
Andy Singh was
the head of, I think it was Coffee Ideological Institute.
Yeah.
And the AFC. PPP had their school Akabri, and the WP has had its Rodney School and so forth. But did those schools, did they make a difference in terms of the cadre that entered politics and public life?
Well, indeed, you had to show some kind of inclinations to want to be in public life before you were getting into those schools anyways. I mean, I went to teach at the PPP school even then when I don't think I was in the PNC at the time, but Jagan asked me to teach, to give lectures at the PPP school. Comrade Ramdatan, he was one of the students there. So, but yes, because the schools give you some sort of grounding in the vicissitudes of politics, so to speak, the meanderings of it, and the ideological pitfalls and advantages of it. So the schools are good for that. I think what you are trying to get at is the participatory culture that is so different between Indians and Africans. Political participatory culture. No, but that's for a totally different reason. That Burnham was rigging elections. We know that. And Burnham didn't need black or Indians to win elections. Burnham set it up, and he would have won the election anyways. But the PPP had nothing else than propaganda to keep their people together. And they kept them together by pointing to Burnham and pointing to ethnicity and race. They held them together by a racial kind of politics. It's not that Janet Jackson and Chetty Jackson was racial. They didn't care hell about race, but the ordinary Indian down there can only be motivated by that sort of a context and hold together with that sort of a context. Oh, when we bring communism, all of that's going to go away. That's their viewpoint. All of that, because we can deal with it and equality. Well, communism never came. Communism never came. And therefore, even when communism never came, Janet Jackson, the mantra was don't split the votes. What do you think that meant? What do you think that meant? It meant vote race. Mm-hmm. Don't split the vote. It's a mantra every meeting almost. Because that's how they hold it. They ain't got money. They had no lots of money. They might be getting some from the Soviet Union. But they had to hold people together. And there is nothing better to hold people together than race. Particularly when you have a government that are manipulating elections and people did not know why they're manipulating elections. Burnham was not a manipulator in election in a primary way. Burnham was dragged to that hotel that was in Main Street, Kissoon, there. Park, was it?
Yes.
Hotel. Almost dragged there. And I'm telling you about people that I spoke to, friends of mine. And it's even then, and said if it wasn't Burnham, there's going to be another Burnham. Because for what reason I never understood. But they told them, we're getting rid of Jagan. Well, whatsoever you like it or not. And the person that took them become a could have to talk him into it, become a good friend of mine. So I had the hell to take Burnham down there. Even after the coalition won the election of
64.
The young socialist movement went in uproar, saying that Burnham should be joining ODR. Well, of course, the deal was already made, but Burnham...
I know that well. I know that well. Because Guyana said, after the election results, they were saying, let Jagan run a minority government. And he said rain was falling that night in Buxton. He put on his long boots and he go and get them by and go down to Congress Place. He went up to see Burnham upstairs and he said, you see them people standing up in the rain there? They don't want no minority government. Give the UF. Give Mr. Digger what he wants and take the government.
Yes.
Remembers the story.
Burnham come out from the Titoite kind of a socialist. I mean, they don't like the Soviet Union because they want to be controlled by them. But he used to show his Communist Party card that he had in London. He's showing that he had the Communist Party card. And it's Jagan that asked somebody because he couldn't bring the urban blacks together with Martin Carter and all of them on the right. So he asked somebody to find somebody for him that can bring the black people out. And they brought Burnham. And they promised Burnham, you see, there's a funny thing, that he's going to be chairman. Burnham took it to be leader. I mean, when you're chairman. And then by which time, Jagan made a big splash for himself at the Enmore Matters. The Enmore Matters. And Jagan overnight become a big thing. The Jagans, as a matter of fact, not Jagan alone. And now Burnham, if whatsoever Burnham might have thought about being a the chairman and so on. All quarrels start about who's going to be chairman. Ashton Chase had to leave and leave it to Burnham, and so on. So these are, as you say, when you understand all the politics, the PPP. Now we know why the Americans didn't want the PPP. But that time, all my partner, well, my friend, I mean, he was quite, since colonial time, he was a big one in the society. But so he knew, but well, he had an idea, but he never told me. And it has always bothered me. Although I'm saying to myself all the time, I'm with the PNC, I am saying to myself, I'm telling Jagan, I took Jagan to Kurukuru to talk. I took him there. When the PNC, Malcolm Paris, he's still alive, and just for the joke, let me hear Malcolm, who he called me because he's my boss. You know, he was at the office of the president. He says, who give you permission to take Jagan to the Kurukuru College? So I said to him, Malcolm, what are you saying? Jagan is the deputy leader of Guyana. Kurukuru College, not party college. I said, what are you saying? I can't bring Jagan, the deputy leader, to the Kurukuru College, and he's the deputy leader. And this Kurukuru is not a party college. You sure you call the right person? You better call Chandy Singh up the road. He had coffee ideological. Maybe you can make a point like that there, but you can't make it. He said, man, you always get into trouble. Story done. And here, Barnum was out the country. So hey, what did it? They run to Dr. Reed and says, oh, Dr. Reed, look what Jeffrey got going. I mean, Dr. Reed says, and I think Malcolm himself told me this. Dr. Reed says, he could have invited somebody worse. And that was the end. And that was the end of that. You know, so the politics, the racial element of our, ethnic element of our politics, never really in the PNC. PNC didn't need it. PNC was just rigging the election. Now Jeffrey don't matter. Ali don't matter. The truth is that Jagan had to find something to keep his people. He got money. The comments are going to give you too much. And the result, what he used was racism. And that is what we have today. The Indian villages are organized like the old Bolsheviks villages. They are, you have political commissars in those places. Says, no African village ever had that. Indeed, and they have never paid particularly, although they had Coffee Ideological Institute. That was just, again, to more or less mold people getting into the political process. And when in 2020, after they won the 2015 election, they actually believe that they're not going to leave power again. They actually believe that they had a formula that they're not going to leave power again. And I think at that time I wrote an article saying they're going to be weeping a gnashing of teeth because this ain't going to happen. So when they had to leave power, Black people are disillusioned. They are saying, oh, what have they done for me? The truth is, if they have not done the kind of structural things they could have done. If you come to power, an important issue is collective bargaining. Fantastic issue. Instead of having collective bargaining, they are just saying, we are going to, we giving you more increases and so on. My God, that is not sustainable in terms of the political process. So when you gone, what happened? What happened is precisely what happened after you were gone. The PPP didn't feel complied to talk to anybody about collective bargaining. You were there, why didn't you? But collective bargaining means that no government no employer has the right alone to sit down and determine what a worker should get paid, or else he give you the smallest amount. So effectively, it is a means of having the workers at the table to understand what is going on and to live with that as part of a parcel. But no, they got that. Maybe that is where the political thing lacking, in the sense what they did, and they did is increase public servant salaries, but they did not leave. They didn't put in place a structure that would see to it that the public sector helped to determine their own salaries. They're running the situation just like the PPP are running it. Exception that they spotted the PPP to start to go. So when they they did increase salary things. So I always say it's not what the PNC has not done for Black people, because they got a lot of other contextual things that you got to hit. How long they believe that they would have been in power, and they did do some things, but it's 4 years against 30 years. But that wasn't the point. It's the change in the system that is required. You sit down now and you read an article, our fund must resign, this, that. Our fund resign, so what? The next one might be worse than our fund. It's the structure that is wrong. It's Barrett, the leader of the party, that controls what takes on in the government. That's the structure we live in. You can do with the formalism. If Barrett, maybe even leader of the list and all that, can put a lick in on our fund if he wants to. This whole Soviet thing, it still exists. So the fund, yeah, all of that. But there's more than that. It's the structure that is wrong, and it's the structure that has to change. I mean, until you do that, and that's why Carter Center, since 2004, Carter walked away from Guyana because they refused. To this year, Carter is at the UN thing about human rights and making the same point 20 years later. And we have politicians making jokes and talking about who should be president and who shouldn't. They should be coalescing around making Guyana a democratic state. That is what they should be doing. Coalescing around that thing. Let us really make Guyana a democratic, inclusive state that nobody, no race, no one feels that they are left out. Agul Soran, right in his stomach, just made the point after all the meandering. He said it again this week. I've been saying it for the longest, right? So that is what is necessary. Our fun gone, it's just another our fun gone taking place.
Yeah.
And by the look of things, might be worse than our fun, because effectively there were some people, Mohammed and all that. But when our fun go there, yes, he didn't have none of the baggage. None. You were saying, orphan did help to reduce the tax on the car, but it's just as criminal an act to ask for that to be done.
And that's where I want you to go, because your column this week that I've put on
Yeah.
the screen there, Ali versus Muhammad, moral
Yeah.
and political decline. The Ali versus Muhammad tickled me.
Yeah, well, I can hardly read that, but you went and asked. You went now and asked the president, because you all are friends and all that. Oh, can you please reduce me tax? And now here you're telling me I must get rid of the president and give you his job. This got to be a joke country. I must give you the president job, who you ask to do an illegal thing, undermining the authority of the GRA. I mean, come on. Come on. Go on.
But I'm very glad that you raised that, because I think we have a collision here of, as you say, political morality and expediency, because there's so many people, including people who don't care for Mohammed as a political leader, who are taking Mohammed's side and are saying, yes, the government is wrong, the government is coming down on you, and you not saying that Mohammed did something wrong. They're not even, I think, thinking that way. So what you have here is a clash of political morality and political expediency, born of the PPP's overreach, their, as you would say, their domination, has driven people to take the side of anybody who comes up against them, including somebody that was in bed with them and that did something as Mohammed did. Expand on that, please.
Yeah, but I mean, you see, my position on anybody that want to go in politics, you can't be in that kind of position where the United... All right, let me put it this way. I believe that the PPP is acting against the Mohammeds because they must. The Americans saying, we give you information, you got people on the streets. Why aren't you doing anything about them? You're coming to us and talk about all sorts of things, but you are not doing your work at home. You have a permanent secretary that you have promoted in your party after we said this about her. Now, what is going on? So, no choice. They got to work against mom. They have to. It's not that if they will, they do it. All right. Well, let me get to my subjectivism. Once they are forced to do something, and Mohammed knows that too. Not stupid. He knows the PPP got to do what they are doing. So what is the best? Why is it a win-win situation? The win-win situation is try politics. You got money, you can astro-surf as much as you like. You can make up all sort of story about this, that, and that. We're going to help as much as we can. And hopefully we're going to still be in power after, because you're going to go and take some votes from the PNC. You can't take votes from them. Not very few. And the whole history of Guyana has shown that no, I don't take any votes from the PPP. Look at all of them, Tennessee, all of them.
When as far back as Balram Singh Roy?
Balram Singh Roy.
Moses Bhagwan.
Ravi
Dev, Tennessee.
It ain't happening because of the nature of what they're doing. You won't get no vote. But because Africans have never been instilled with it, they still have what we can call this a liberal democratic way of looking at politics. I got a right to do this. It's me open right. you might have it, but you can't easily. Well, you might vice it even, but you can't easily get through it though with any PPP is strong. And but and when you listen to it, you say, "What this is for?" Because effectively, what happens is that yes, you have democratic rights, but you can't. You can well, the right you have for what you have now when the entire group is under attack. The first thing the Jewish state did, that same Jewish state that murdering the people in Gaza, when they come out, they passed a law for all collaborators with the Nazi. And there were quite a few of them, don't fool yourself. Apparently, the Jewish police were the people who put you in those exterminating camps. They were policing it to kill Jews. And they effectively passed a law. And the South Africans had it when they were fighting a revolution. So you can't just sit down and say, I can do what I like under all circumstances. That you're saying that because you have no personality of a group, you're not seeing that it's your group that is being attacked. And PNC got, as I said, the border people got part because they never really turn black people into that kind of a solid group. Don't think the votes, So don't split the votes. You go black people think you don't hear that. They might have said at some kind, in that thing, but they know what I've been with PNC. I never hear nothing publicly telling people don't split the votes. So, David, that is our context. And hopefully, as I said, your people got a bigger moral hand in this. I understand. I've written and said it's good long before that the AFC should be part of a coalition. But they must see things differently. I can't see how, on what grounds AFC can even be asking for 30%, much as any more. It is like I'm talking about, what the people think. The people have spoken, the people that is in the party have spoken. It's just to live with the democratic reality of the larger party and try to circle the camp and do what we have to do. Not for you to bring in settling nonsense about Darby. And up to now, I'm not even seeing any sensible thing they have said about North. Every day they're coming up with something, but it's not. So we shall see how the ball plays. But regardless of what happens, Guyana, after this election, will not be a democratic state. I know, read today, Starbuck News, I think it's today, yeah. With the Carter Center, they said they are just coming with a small delegation to see what happened during the election period. Just we see how votes were cast because they know what the international, Transparency International said, and what Chris Rama said, that the PPP has captured the state and are buying votes. And you can't win a democratic election if you use dictatorial methods to make people vote for you. So, regardless of how you're saying, so the Carter Center might be right. Just come see how you vote because you never know what's going to. Look what happened with Maduro. Everybody says how he was, and at the day they turn out, he asked apparently to all sorts of people. I mean, I have not or than he says he wants because he controls the election commission, and that happens here too. But the point is, he actually, from my assessment of everything I'm hearing, he actually lost. But if he didn't even win, what he did before the election would have still disqualified him from being Democratic government. And this is precisely what's happening here. Regardless of how you spin it, the PPP is already an autocratic government and would go further down that road.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. As usual, we are dealing with some, as you all would say, some deep subjects here, because it is important that we get into this kind of discourse to put things in perspective. As I said at the beginning of the program, we live in different times. It's now social media. It's God, what would Rodney and Jagan and Burnham and Guyana have given? What would they have given for coming every evening and speaking to over 1,500 people live, and before the end of the night, it gone up in the thousands? What would they have given? Certainly social media has changed our politics and political communication. And so young people may say, well, there is no need to go and read the big books and the canons and so on and so forth. There's a way in which one can get by in the political arena today without going deep into the so-called canons. So that is why I'm very careful that I'm not criticizing young people, young political people, because they are products of our society. It's really, it's where the society has gone, and we have to take that into consideration. I mean, a lot of you know cricket because we are West Indians. Look at Puran, retired 29. At 29, people's career now taking off, and he could retire. He's a mega millionaire. I mean, he doesn't need the West Indies in the way that others before. Our society has changed, the world has changed, and Guyana in particular, because of our transition into a petrol state. It exacerbates a lot of the issues that we have always had, but we have some or the other found a way in the past to contain them. Now you could have the governing party without shame saying, we aren't coalescing with nobody. We're not power sharing with nobody. And then you could have on the opposition side not recognizing that coalescing is a natural thing to do, fighting it and so on. So our society has changed. But that does not mean that we should not engage our history. We have to engage our history, even as the society has changed. Let me ask you this generic question, Doc. Is political morality still necessary?
I suppose. I suppose, yes. I think, as I said, the WPA had to do it, and under the PP, the WPA never said that this system is not wrong. Organized and not for, but they are saying you gotta wait later. They're obfuscating because they get locked up in the institutional arrangement, that thing. But they never for one moment denied that this should happen throughout your history. So you have demonstrated quite clearly that there are some levels of political morality in the system, because you have never said we want to win and we want to rule almost by ourselves. That is precisely what happened the last time, both with the leader and the other the thing. So, yes, of course you have a political morality. But I think that what you do have much more is like a pragmatism. Let me do anything and then we can get with it. After all, it don't matter what I do. I can be president or I can be any old thing. All I do is to run to the people, and if they vote for me, no matter who I kill, who I do, that's fine. After orphan have 90 charge against CEO, that's fine. But that's the culture in which you are growing up now. I have nothing against people like the Mohammeds, but I say clear your name first with all of this and then come to the front. Don't come expecting the people to vote for you when you have all this baggage. This is not cleared. You are fighting, you apparently are fighting the government because the government got to do what it's doing, and you know. So I have nothing, but you must clear off these things. The political morality demands that you come to the people with clean hands. If you got to go to the people with clean hands, you can't just now tell orphan, please help me to take my limbo whatsoever out, and then the next moment saying, please give me orphan job. Oh, me? How are you going to do that? How can I give you orphan job? It's stupid. So effectively, yes, there is political morality, but the younger generation has grown up to believe that politics, most of them has grown up to believe that politics is just an opportunistic thing. You do what you like. And all you gotta do is get in politics, people vote for you, and then everything is hard. You get rich. I mean, our generation and a bit before, after, yes, they've been taught that you can. And the Barnum, don't matter what you say, Barnum, you couldn't even have a share in a company under the PPP. You can't PNC. You can go and say, I am buying shares in a company without having it pass through the party. Let everybody know what you have. Today you have some sort of integrity commission. God knows what that is. It's nothing, largely because the ruling party controls all the institutions in the society. And that's not their fault, so to speak. It's the structure. The structure, if I give the other side, God knows, they are claiming to be better people. They think it's a church we go into. You are better. The truth is that you have a structure. You have a structure there that gives all the power. Can't mess with it. Look what happened to the president there.
Santoki. Yeah.
Yes, Santoki. Can't happen in Suriname. You have to have a system that do not give all the power to a man and then say, we will want God to be president. That's what you say. Mm-hmm. When you do what you're doing in Guyana, you are looking for God to be president. Because if you give him all the power in the world, it means he can do anything. Which one of us can stand up and say, oh, I got the power, and I'm going to do something? That's why I said, move orphan. You're just going to get another orphan. Because, yeah, he did something and he should be moved. But don't think you are improving the situation without changing the structure of governance.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey, there have been some crossovers from the PNC to the PPP, in particular, Member of Parliament Geeta Chandan and Chairman of Region 4, Daniel C. Ram. And Winston Jordan, who's on this program, made the point. I also made the point, but I think coming from Winston, it carries a lot more weight because they can say easily the time Afrocentric. I think Winston may say he's Afrocentric, but I don't think the larger society sees him in that way. But he was moved to say, look, you all got those positions on the back of African Guyanese votes. And in the case of Chandan, You go into the parliament on those votes and denounce the party who gave you those votes, and in a sense, this is my thing now, and tell them your vote got me here, and I'm now going over to your torturers. All right. It elicited a response from Ubraj Narain, former mayor, PNC member, who castigated Jordan and myself for racial divisiveness because we raised this issue. Let me get your take on it, because there are a couple of issues there that you should deal with.
First of all, crossover is not new. I was in PNC when maybe the more fundamental crossover happened under PPP. You had Chandy Singh, you had Vincent Tika, you had Harry Lal. These are top. I mean, and I run into all of them because I was working nationally well. Myself, Mark David, and Malcolm Paris is the one who debriefed Chandy Singh. When Harry Lal came to Kurukuru, and they say he was saying whatsoever, but he came. So, no. And that was devastating. Indeed, the changeover wasn't just people changing over, was the whole communist black changing over towards Warnham. I told you the other day, 21 communist country or something end up in PNC 1981 Congress. So it's not changeable. People change, and that was what you call substantive. Chandy Singh was the chief ideologue on the PPP. Chief ideologue of the PPP. Same thing with Vincent Tika. He's one of the big chief. But Harry Lal was the major trade union man. So don't tell me this about them. What you're seeing this here is nothing on the changeover you had in Bornham. Indeed, as I said, the changeover was so great that now Bornham, the PNC, Congress got all these people from the communist bloc. Of course, Bornham just ended up just like Jagan ended up. Bringing the ire of the Americans against you and all sort of thing happened. So, yeah, that. Now, you are making the point that that's happening for one reason and one reason only. It's happening because the Indian people in the party has never been made to understand what they're fighting for. Mm-hmm. No, they think they're still there in a liberal democratic place or anything. But you are saying to we have a government here that is destroying black people. Now, if you're with us, you got to fight that. How we going to fight it, we can determine, but it's got to be fought. This is not, you got the right not to want this and that. No, it's gone past that. It's not what the PNC did to you, didn't do for you, as I said to when they come to me with this. I say, it's not what the PNC didn't do for you. I know what they didn't do. Yeah, and they could have done more. What the PPP is doing to you. And no, the government in this part of the 20th century, 21st century should be doing that to any group against UN and every rule. And that's why Transparency International said the goddamn PPP has captured the state with the private sector's help and doing what they want.
Is there going to be any effect? Will this have any effect on the outcome of the election? The so-called crossovers.
Let me explain again. If it was the PPP, the way they had it organized, very little. If it's ours, it depends on how these elections, or how you organize for this election to play out, because you got to understand your job now is so you got a huge job. You got to let people understand that, how they're being treated under the PP regime. They don't know. They don't know that the PPNC regime, PPP or Fanali regime come to power in 2020 and immediately cut the public servant salary by that was there left by the PPNC by half. They come back with the same 8%. Others do 5, 4, 3%. If the Americans stand up for the teachers that have graduate degrees, that almost end up with how much? 34, 40, I can't, but far more than the 8% that they were giving you. They have to change their mind, because the America says, no, it's not right. You got to have your people understand that what you are fighting is not a racial battle. You are fighting a battle for your human rights. That is what you're fighting. And the Amerindians must join you in that fight, because they are still the poorest people in this land. They are still the poorest people in this land, because the PPP has been manipulating their leadership forever. Forever. And it's happening again. They can call them any 2 shows meeting, they control it. They want to do just that to black. That's why they want to get rid of white party. So they will bring their own black people in and say, oh, this is the meeting. Oh, we love President Ali and President Jackie Vice. Oh, yeah. And that's what you end up.
Dr. Jeffrey, as usual, you've brought another perspective to the discourse, and our country is a complex country. On the one hand, one can say it's straightforward, because there's some certain things that are normative, but on the other hand, we have to say we are a complex country, complex in terms of race, complex in terms of ethnicity, class, color, you name them, they're there in Guyana. But we were able to overcome enslavement and colonialism, and the early days of independence. We were able to survive those, and we have come 60 years after independence. And I don't think, and I'm sure you share this view, that it is not impossible to turn our country back. It is not impossible. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Just let me explain. What happened in 2011? You remember the PPP had done wipe out the PNC. Corbyn is Jack Joe Stooge and all of that. You remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And what happened at the end of the election day? PPP lose. They were saved by Constitution that give the plurality people the presidency. They lost. And what happened in 2015?
They lost again.
They lost again.
Yeah.
So this, and 2020 is that is I think in a sense the PNC brought it on itself, but that wasn't a real election also.
Right.
So there you have it. So don't throw anything out. People sit back down and say, what's going on here? In 2004, when I ministered education, but just think of this one stat. Public service teachers used to get 3.4% of GDP per annum, average. Go check it. Check what that would mean today. 3 times the GDP of Guyana. Even if you cut it now, man, they never see even get to 2% of the GDP. Man, give me a break. And that is what the PPP has done over years. over years, decades. And you're going to tell me what it is?
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, thank you, my brother. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
All right. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, one of our favorite analysts, always brings that different light. You know, that point, you know, I have been struggling, you know, to really put it the way Jeffrey put it, you know. That our Indian comrades have to understand that the black struggle is a real struggle, and they have to align themselves with our struggle. And you know, Pandit, every time some black leader open their mouth, he jumping and condemning them. He can't continue doing that. He's undermining our struggle for justice and dignity, and is part of the team. You know, and that is why when I call Gita a slave catcher, that is the point I wanted to make. That here is a government shackling a black man, putting shackles around his feet, Brother Takuma. And you are condemning him, and you on this side of the aisle. And that is why I call a slave catcher. And I wasn't talking about slave catchers from Africa, as Ravi Dev like to say. I was talking about the slave catchers on this side of the Atlantic. Those who were catching our foreparents when they run away from the plantation. And it is that you cannot be on our side. You cannot be on our side and watch a black man being shackled, watch black women being stomped in their stomach, and then go in and condemn. And Pandit needs to stop it and send it publicly there to him, because I'm going to let loose on him shortly if he continues with that. And you all know when I'm ready to let loose, you all know he needs to stop it. Every time a black leader opens his mouth, he comes out and undermining our struggle for dignity and justice. I have been patient with him. I've been very patient with him, and my patience is running thin. That's my last word for tonight. I am going to see you all tomorrow night. I try to see, lots is happening at GCOM, and we have Mad Vincent on for a couple of weeks. I'm going to try to get Vincent on tomorrow night, but whether Vincent is available or not available, we shall be here as we continue the countdown to elections 2025. There's a lot riding on these elections. Good night.